Hello traders, welcome to your daily market update for Monday the 13th of April 2015. And last week we've seen the market kick off with the US dollar strength still dominating, and we closed the week with the US dollar strength still dominating. Now, the data coming out of the US is still positive in the big grand scheme of things, and the market is readjusting. The bond market and the currency market are all readjusting their positions on expectations an interest rate rise will come out between June and September. Now, they're forming this opinion and firming up their positions based on the Fed minutes really hinting that that's going to be the case, and we're pretty much certain that an interest rate rise will happen during this period. So any further clues from the Fed will only strengthen the positions as more conviction comes into the market. Let's look at what we've got coming up this week. So this week we have more data coming out. Usually the first week of every month is quiet in terms of economic data, and now we're moving into the second week of the month. We'll start to see more and more important data coming out, which could actually move the market around a bit. We need to keep an eye on it. But looking at today's calendar, as you can see, there isn't a lot of data coming out, and that means that the market will be typically trading off technicals. So with technical trading still dominating, we'll move to those charts and we'll look for some opportunities. I should mention though that we had the trade balance, imports and exports coming out of China, and it was pathetic, very weak data to say the least, and that's really heavily weighed on the Australian dollar, rightly so. And we're going to see further impacts of that flow on for the remainder of the month, I feel. Also, there's a big chance that Australian data could continue to weaken. And we have Joe Hockey coming out and talking about the Australia's federal budget. So the budget isn't expected to be pretty at all. And when that hits the news wires going around the globe, we could see further sell-offs in the Australian dollar as people look to divest away from Australia, given the gloomy outlook. So keep an eye on those factors, keep an eye on that news. It isn't on this calendar, but it's definitely something you should be keeping an eye on, as the Australian dollar looks like it's in free fall mode, and it doesn't look like there's anything out there that can really change that. So before I move on, I will move my filters and I'll just give you a quick rundown of what we've got coming up for the week. So I'll just change it to the critical data here. And you can see that we've got retail sales coming out tomorrow. That will be important for the US dollar, and it's expected to be significantly improvement. So that could really throw fuel on the fire and continue to boost the US dollar. We have some more data coming out of China, and it's expected to be slightly weaker or flat. So if it does come in weaker than expected, well, then that'll only continue to weigh on the Australian dollar. We have the ECB's rate decision. Now, that isn't going to change, but it's the policy statement that everyone's going to be focused on. So the market from probably Tuesday onwards will start really looking towards the statement and the press conference of this ECB meeting. It's going to be very critical for the market in terms of looking for signs of what's the future for Europe and what do we have coming up. So definitely keep an eye on that. I'll talk more about that later in the week. We have the Bank of Canada interest rate decisions now. Their data has been getting weaker and weaker, and this conference is also going to be heavily focused by the market. So the press conference and the money policy report will definitely play a role. Prior to that, the market will initially trade on the back of the statement. I think the interest rates will remain on hold, but there is a chance of them cutting. Now, if they do cut, that is going to be huge for the Canadian dollar, and it will lose momentum significantly against the US dollar. But I'll talk more about that on Tuesday and Wednesday morning. Now, Thursday is all about Australia, and this is where the Australian data could actually turn disappointing, and we could continue to see further sell-offs in the Australian economy, because we are seeing that employment is definitely getting harder, unemployment rate is rising, and things don't look good. Finishing off the week, it's a relatively quiet week. And I think that by the time Friday comes, the market will be just pricing in all the data that's come out during the week. Looking at the dollar index, we had a bounce here off 96 cents, and you can see it's continued on, and we are approaching the 100 level. And it's going to be a very interesting level to see if we break it and all we can do is just follow the technicals here and see how the market reacts coming into that. But for now, it's very much a bullish story. Having a look at the charts, we've seen here, I'm on the New Zealand versus the US daily chart, and I had this triangle painted, which I put it on Twitter for those followers, and we've had a breakout to the downside, and that is on the back of weak China data, and it doesn't look like that the selling is actually going to let up anytime soon. So there's definitely some trading opportunities there. If you missed the breakout, who knows, we may get a little bit of a pullback in the European session. You may be able to get in a couple of pips higher, and we'll have to wait and see. But I think a run to the 74 cents is definitely on the cards at some point. The Australian dollar, very similar, but a sadder story coming out of the Australian dollar. We've seen a massive sell-off here. If I go to the 4-hourly chart, I posted on Twitter this rising wedge chart pattern, and we broke out of that on Friday, come back up, tested the back of it, and we've just fallen away. And then open of today, as you can see, it's just been nothing but a sell-off on the back of the weak China data. Now, we do have historical support through this area here at 95.8 cents. So I think the market could find support here now. It is a few hours away from the European session. If we get a bounce, you may be able to put some more selling orders in here. I think 75 cents will be tested this week, and it could definitely go below that depending on how weak the Australian data actually is. The euro is also, we've seen this triple top here, a very strong resistance level. It has been rejected, and we've seen very many selling days all in a row. Now, it's going to be very interesting to see how the market reacts down here at $1.05, but for now, you can't have anything else to say, but it's just very bearish, and you don't want to be taking any long positions. It's all going to come down to the EBC monetary policy. I should try and spit that out, I apologise. And the selling could actually accelerate. Now, if we do see ourselves getting some positive information coming out of the ECB, we could get a short-term bounce, or if they are quite hesitant to give us any positive results, especially with Greece and the overall monetary situation throughout Europe, well then I think the lows here will be taken out. We'll make some fresh lows. The sellers will jump back in, and momentum will continue to flush out all the buyers. The pound is also a very sad story. Now, we've taken out the lows here, and I've mentioned last week the reasons why this 105 is a very strong resistance level. As you can see, the market tried to break above it so many times, but now we're starting to see that the UK government is really emphasising the fact that data coming out isn't strong enough to raise rates anytime soon, and it's always been my view that they won't raise rates this year, and the market's definitely ruled that out now, and the continue on selling should remain in the market as the pound will actually look to be sold off as the divergence of the UK economy gets further away from the US economy, which is even closer to raising rates. So the US is closer to raising rates, and the UK is further away from raising rates. So the divergence is getting further away, and the continue on selling there looks to be imminent for now. Although the UK economy isn't going bad, but the charts will have you thinking that. You just need to understand the reasons why for now. And I think that we will see a bounce on the pound as soon as the UK officials start discussing or hinting to any time frame towards a tightening or even a neutral policy. The US versus the CAD, we had a big bounce here off this $1.24. I keep mentioning that, and I think that's going to remain now. And it's all up to the US dollar for now, and then we're going to turn to that Canadian data that I mentioned previously, especially with their monetary statement. Now, should we get a very weak data coming out of that, well then I think this range-bound market will actually be broken, and will be broken to the upside, and we'll make a run for $1.30. So that's what I view, and I'll be definitely keeping a very keen interest and eye on that particular data. The US dollar versus the Japanese yen. Now, it has been quite subdued, but we've seen a recent bounce here. Now, that's on the back of bond markets coming back in and buying into the interest rate rise being not too far away for the US economy. So as the bond market continues, it's stopping suppressing the US dollar versus the Japanese yen, and I think we'll continue to see the buyers coming in along with the dollar index. So I'm looking for it to come up and test the $1.21 in the short term, but then it's going to take some pretty big news before we actually start to break out of this range-bound market that we've seen since November. And it's been some months it's been range-bound, but I think ultimately it will break out to the high side, especially as soon as we get closer and closer to an interest rate rise and the market starts looking forward to that particular data. All right, well, that's the charts, and hopefully that gives you an update of what we've got coming up this week. I'll be around every day producing these videos, so stay tuned. I've also released an expression of interest for those who are interested in trading alongside with me in the month of March. Go to forexnationtv.com, and hopefully you sign up there, and I can continue to give you the latest information, and I'll let you know all about the up-and-coming trading with myself throughout May. Until then, trade well.